Well, welcome back. Behind every successful business is a story, one of courage, there's creativity, and taking control of your future. Well, welcome. This is the Stay at Home Bookkeeper Podcast, and this is real talk. This is where we're going to share real stories, strategies, struggles of people who have built freedom-based businesses. So, if you're ready to design a business that fits your life or scale maybe your existing business and hear real talk from those doing it already, you're in the right place. I'm so excited and pumped about today's guest here with us. She's a dear friend of mine, incredibly sweet, amazing business entrepreneur. Tamar Hermes, how are you?
I am doing great, and I can't wait to dive in to all the goodness here that we can share.
Awesome. Well, Tamar, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I have a couple of moving arms, as we know, we all do.
Yes, yes, we do.
So one is a company, Women Growing Wealth, where I support women to go from financially successful to financially free, and that has to do with what all business owners ultimately want, which is to have a wealth column on their personal balance sheet, and not just everything relying on a business. So it's about what it looks like when money's coming in for you and working for you, and you have a net worth that you can live on, whether you go to work or not. And so that's Women Growing Wealth. And then I also am a real estate investor, and that's where I really learned a lot about growing wealth and started to discover the whole world of what it is to buy properties, own properties, rent properties, and run businesses that way.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit about Women Growing Wealth. What are some things that you are, especially now that we're in 2026, what are some things that you're focused on helping women with growing their wealth, their portfolio or their business? What are you seeing that is right now a need and how you're helping them overcome that?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One has to do with the fact that once your business starts to make money, like many of the listeners, they're growing their businesses and they start to see that they are getting excess cash that they don't necessarily want to put back into the business. And then what do you do with that? Do you buy another business? Do you keep scaling your business? Or do you start investing in assets? Do you put it in the stock market? Do you put it in real estate? So those are all choices that I work on with the women in the mentorship. The other thing that is a huge variable that everyone can relate to, especially bookkeepers, is taxes. So I work a lot on strategy and on how do we mitigate taxes? How do we get ahead of the tax code to utilize what's there and take advantage of the opportunities that the government has incentivized us to partake. One, of course, that you're already doing is business ownership, which certainly serves the world. And then there's so many others that we can take advantage of because the tax bill that comes is generally no fun for any business owner.
I don't know anyone that loves doing that. I'm just saying. Right? So
Absolutely. It's probably on the list of the things that people like least.
yeah, I would agree. So, what got you into helping women with their wealth and their tax strategies? What started you there? Kind of give us your journey. I know you're a mom. You've got an incredible family. I know your husband is in the movie business. Like, what got you into being an entrepreneur and getting that started?
I was always obsessed with the idea that I could get into a position where I didn't have to trade time for money. So, just like every business owner, you're getting yourself into the next level of, okay, now there's other people that are supporting me in my business and I can go to work when I want to. Generally, there's things that need to be done, so you need to go to work, but it's also more of a choice. So I didn't want to work for someone. That was the first thing that I knew. And when I was an executive in television, when I was 28, I had a great career. I figured out, okay, how can I have a career and still have some fun? And so entertainment is a great way to do it because you're playing all day in a sense, and that was a good time. But I still had to report in. I still had to go to meetings. I still had to ask for time off, and I didn't like that. So that's when I started looking at what my options were, and when I bought my first real estate property. So once I bought real estate, I started to see, oh, okay, I don't need as much rent anymore because the tenants are paying the rent. Oh, okay, I can save money on taxes this way. Oh, okay, now this money is actually covering my payments. So that led me onto a journey of different ways in which we can earn money in the world and also have freedom, which was my number one value and what I really wanted for myself. And once I started to accumulate, and my husband, as you mentioned, is a filmmaker, so he started to accumulate, and we got into a situation where we had more and more money coming in. So then what do? I had to solve that for myself because I would hire financial advisors and they would give me advice that didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I would sometimes get not great advice from CPAs and bookkeepers. As you know, they're not all created equal, and have different ways in which they do business. And that can really affect your bottom line. And so all of these areas of wealth building, these pillars, also another huge one is the mindset around money and the mindset around, wow, we don't need to maybe work as hard as we think. We don't need to feel like it's we're being forced into a situation that doesn't feel aligned with our values, and all of these things came up for me. So that's when I started to really work on mastering them, and from there I realized that I wanted to help other women do the same.
So you kind of learned from School of Hard Knocks. So you learned from everything, and then you decided I'm going to help other women do that as well. Right.
Correct. A hundred
Was there
percent.
was there anything like that was like a massive roadblock when you started, or was there any struggles that you had to deal with because you had to learn this yourself? Was there anything that you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, there were massive roadblocks all the time. Uh, you know, I would take smaller steps than maybe if I was had a mentor where they were coaching me each step of the way because I was really helping myself. So I had to maybe buy a single family home as opposed to a large apartment building. And as I was going through the process, I would find, oh, maybe that wasn't such a great tenant to rent to. Oh, this is how you need to evict someone when they're not paying the rents. Oh, the plumbing just blew up and now I have a $20,000 bill that I didn't anticipate. Some of this has to do with just things that we can't anticipate in any business that we're in, as all the listeners can experience. I'm sure everyone's nodding their head going, yeah,
Yeah,
I've had things that felt like my plumbing blew up.
right.
And so that experience just taught me how to work through situations and to realize that I could work through those situations, and that sometimes the direction does feel like a setback if you have a large plumbing expense, let's say, that you didn't anticipate, and you feel like, oh my gosh, now how am I going to make money on this deal because now I've had to spend a lot of money fixing plumbing. And the truth is that we learn to navigate and work things out. And we also learn how to take losses sometimes and how to get bigger wins on the other end.
It's fantastic. So in the space that you're in with the financial space, let's separate it in because we have financial and we have real estate, which it's crazy how you've got your hands in so many pots and you do such a great job with it. On the financial side, are there any like simple type of financial habits that you believe that every business owner should have that you don't mind sharing? Or is there anything that comes to mind that you don't mind sharing here today with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we get so immersed in running our businesses because that's where the money is coming from. And so that's the train that we get into every day to run. And we forget about our personal column. And a lot of times when I start working with clients, even when they're making even multi seven figures sometimes, they don't know how much they're spending personally. They don't know where their money is necessarily being invested. Maybe they just got too busy, so they turned it over to a financial advisor and they think they're making 7%, but they're really not sure. They don't have they don't have vehicles in place to really protect what they've built. Trusts, living trusts, things that basically help you if you're not around, God forbid, anymore, and your family needs to take over. What's in place? What legal vehicles are in place? They don't have life insurance. So all of these things, I think, are things that come onto a personal column more than they do on a business column. Certainly we have life insurance in companies, and certainly we can have trusts inside companies in terms of, what happens with businesses, but you need to tend to your personal column. You need to take care of yourself. You need to put your mask on yourself, and also on your self-care. That's another huge thing, because you can be working and working and your body can break down, and then you can realize that your health's not there, and then you don't feel good and you're not hopeful for anyone, and it's hard for you to even enjoy anything that you've built because you're not taking care of yourself. So you need to give yourself that time too, and maybe that means spending some money on a personal trainer, or doing some health practices where maybe food comes into the house because you don't have time to prepare. All of those things are really important. So that goes from the financial side. I kind of slipped into the mental side, but that's really an important part.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Well, like you even said, like we were talking about before we even started, like you said, you went and your family went and did a staycation this weekend. Didn't make it anything big, but you guys just got away for a little bit. So I guess, you're right. It is so important. And my husband and I had this conversation this weekend. We were talking about work-life balance, right? Like we're in this middle of this new acquisition ourselves, and we are getting sucked into like just drowning and spending all of our time. And we're like, wait, we got to remind ourselves, why did we do this? Why is there, we got to make sure there's a work-life balance, right? And so what would you say is for you, like, how do you do that work-life balance with your family and the businesses, all the ones that you have? Like, what is something that is really big for you?
Well, I prioritize my mornings. I cold plunge every morning. I exercise. I lift weights. I eat right. And that is really important for me because that has to do with my energy level and the way that my mind feels. I do meditations, I do breath work, whatever I feel like I need to keep my day going. And that to me is one of the most important things, because you have to take care of yourself first, even before the relationship, even before the business, to make sure that you are showing up as a leader, as a person that someone would want to spend time with, and also to be able to have the wherewithal to grow a company. Because let's face it, it's not easy. I was just talking about this on Instagram, actually, saying, why does all the gurus say that it's supposed to be easy? It's not supposed to be easy. It's not easy. It just doesn't mean that it's impossible. It's a
Right.
process. And then when we can be in the process and work with it, then we can enjoy our lives. But when we're pushing all the time, and I spent many years, this is also me speaking from doing things all wrong, and maybe not all wrong, but just doing it a lot harder than it needed to be. I mean, not being easy is one thing, but making it just darn right challenging is another on yourself. And that has to do with the way that you're taking care of yourself and the way that you're feeling about yourself. And, sometimes maybe a client doesn't pay, or maybe you thought you were going to reach certain numbers and you didn't. And how do you deal with that? And how do you treat yourself in that space? So that's why it's so important to go back to yourself, because if you're not feeling good about yourself and you're run down, then that's going to start breaking down your decision-making ability and your ability to really move forward and feel positive about what you're creating and building.
Absolutely. So I'm going to take that even one step further, because we were talking about this prior to us starting this, and we were talking about like focus and whether you focus on this or this acquisition or so. Let's just say, because I know you're such a serial entrepreneur. Like you really are out there. You're always getting good ideas. You share great ideas. How do you decide where to focus when, let's just say there's, let's say 20 or 30 good ideas on the table. How do you personally decide, okay, I'm going to focus on this? And now, since it's the beginning of the year and people are starting to go into that mindset of, here's my focus, here's what I want to do for Q1 or Q2, like, how do you personally decide, like, okay, this is where tomorrow's going to focus and this is a good idea. This one I'm just going to put off to the side and hold, or what does that look like for you?
I think it's really important to ask yourself what it is that you want your life to look like, because everything's going to take your time and resources. So if you have a business that you're building and right now you have a certain revenue that you want to hit, then you can look at, okay, what things do I need to do to hit the revenue? Do I want to maybe acquire another company that complements that business? Do I want to just keep growing and getting more clients, maybe in different states? What do I want to do? So ask yourself those questions. But if you're in a place where you're thinking, we've been getting so many calls for CPAs now, we should really add CPA to our businesses, then that makes sense because it's kind of an evolution. So I think it's important to look at the evolutions. And for all entrepreneurs, we love ideas. We're idea junkies. So it's important to think, okay, is this really going to serve where I want to go? And if not, does it make sense? And we were talking right before this call saying, oh, last year I wanted to buy a business and I was really gung ho about adding a business to my life and my revenue streams. And I had ideas about it. And then as I got into it, I thought, well, do I really want to spend my time doing this? Why do I want to do this? And does it make sense? And once I realized all the things I have going with Women Growing Wealth and with all my real estate and with my personal life and things that I want to do, it really didn't feel like I wanted to put my resources there. So that was something I said no to. We can really have an amazing capacity for what we're capable of. And at a certain point, it can also create a situation where we're not feeling great because we've just taken too much on and we feel too strapped. And so I think part of it is also giving yourself the permission to say, you know what, I'm not going to go in that direction. I'm just not going to do that. I know that maybe I could have this much more revenue or this much more of a business or these many more businesses, but maybe that's not right for you. And what you do and what somebody else does is not always the same. And it's important to really look at what you want your life to look at, because it is going to take your time and resources, and you need to decide, is it going to be rewarding and worth it for you? I mean, is it maybe you're missing time with your kids? Maybe that's not worth anything for you. And maybe you just don't want to make that choice because you want to go to those baseball games.
That's true. That is very true. So, talk about the financial side, because there's so many people that are probably listening here or watching this today are business owners, or they may be going into their business. I would like for you, because you know so much about financial mistakes that you see business owners make. What is something that you see that happens a lot that maybe business owners are always repeating and they don't know how to get themselves out of that cycle?
Well, I think one of the main things has to do with not preparing for taxes
Mm,
and feeling like you just have to pay the taxes at the end of the year because that's what's owed and that's what your CPA says. I think that it's important to question what your bottom line is and to look at what resources there are available to you to mitigate taxes. Because if you think about your biggest paycheck that you write, it's to the government, it's to the
mm,
taxes.
yep.
And if you live in California, you really feel it. Really, really feel it. I
That's
don't live
true.
in California anymore, but I used to. It's painful. It's painful to work that hard and to make that much money and then give half of it away. So I think it's really prudent to take time to figure out how to knock down that tax bill in any way that you can. And ways that we look at it, of course, real estate and owning businesses, buying new businesses, they're great incentives for the government, and there are great tax opportunities for savings there. There's also sometimes it's just, even I know all y'all are bookkeepers, but even then, I'm sure sometimes your books don't look as pretty as some of your clients. And just realizing, oh, wow, I should have really been looking at this and maybe doing a little bit more deductions here or there, or take advantage of this or that opportunity that's available. So I think that that's one of the first places I would look is with the taxes. That's where I see a lot of people paying more than they need to. Now, granted, we generally have to pay some taxes for most people, and that's just part of the way we live. And we can make it a lot better. So that would be the first thing. I guess the other big mistake would probably be also getting stuck in the weeds of things that aren't really paying off. So you get an idea in your mind thinking, okay, I'm going to get this many clients this way. And then after a few months, you realize, okay, the clients aren't forthcoming in this way. I need to change the marketing direction, or I need to change who I'm serving. I have a friend who famously says, don't change your act, change your audience. So that's really a good thing to think about, right? And so we have to pay
Being willing to
attention.
pivot and being able to
Yeah,
pivot, right? I think
pivot.
that's key.
Yeah. You got to
Yeah,
be able to pivot.
yeah, I think the thing on that too, because I even in marketing, like when I've talked to people and they're like, "Well, I'm struggling to get these leads or to get new businesses in and things like that." And I'm like, "Well, are you thinking outside of the box? Like, are you thinking of where these business owners hang out? Are you thinking about are you wearing clothing that talks about your business? Are you going to chamber? Are you getting out there? Are you putting yourself out there in social, on LinkedIn, on all the places where people will be paying attention?" And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Well, you got to think outside the box. You've got and what may have worked last year or 2 years ago, you got to change. You got to pivot. You got to be willing to embrace the things that are happening today. I will use AI as a great example. People were so afraid, right, of AI. But now it's like if you can embrace that and pivot and change and use AI to grow your business now, it is a huge, huge asset. Like I could not live without AI right now. Like I'm in it every day, all day long, and I love it. But what's funny is that my husband, who absolutely was against it like 3 years ago, and now he's in it every single day, loves it, lives off of it, builds everything around it. But if you would ask him, he's like, I'm not going to let someone do that. That's just scary. And I'm like, but you've got to embrace the change. You've got to be able to pivot when things change, and they change all the time. So if you're going to be a business that is continuously growing and scaling, you have to be willing to do that. You have to be able to say, I'm willing to try new things. I'm willing to pivot here. I'm willing to look and analyze like my taxes. Am I utilizing wealth strategies that are in my favor? Like talking to someone like you, right? Or having someone that guides you and counsels you on where the best way to save or to grow and scale your business. Like I think that the other thing is having mentors and people around you that can then guide you to. That's another one, right? Like just having those people that'll share.
Absolutely. Mentorship is really important. I know we talked about how I built everything on my own, but later on I did get a lot of mentors, and I have a lot of mentors. I just started out without many of them because I just didn't know how to source them. The other thing that I wanted to share about the utilizing AI and utilizing marketing skills
Mhm.
and pivoting is also asking yourself, what am I inclined to do that feels true for me in terms of how I market. Because there's so many ways, there's so many platforms. And if you try to do everything, you'll do nothing well.
Right.
So for me, for example, one of the things that I do, which is very unique to my brand, is that I throw dinners. I love to entertain and I love people. So I will have women over if you're local in Austin. And then
And
I
they're amazing, by the way. They're amazing dinners.
and what I do there is I will actually do a workshop dinner where I teach the enough number. And your enough number is that number that I feel like you need to be financially free. You need, not only you need, but that you want. There's a number that you have where money will keep working for you instead of you working for money. And that's the number that I think gives a lot of peace for every person once they realize, oh, if I make this much, then this much can be working for me. And I don't need to work as hard to keep making more. Because let's face it, we're in a culture where it's more, 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 more.
Right.
So we can get very stressed out and feel like it's never enough and feel like we're never going to hit the mark. And if you're someone that you can understand, okay, this is this is what I like want my lifestyle to look like, this is what I need, this is what I want, then you can get a number, and then that can help you get a baseline. So that's one of the ways that I introduce women to my work. I focus on certain platforms with social media as opposed to others. So you want to really get to a place where you're focusing on what you really enjoy, too, because let's face it, we don't want to be miserable while we're building our companies, because that's no fun.
No, not at all. So let's talk about that really quickly, because I kind of want to be respectful of your time, but what you're sharing today, by the way, is just gold. So thank you.
Yeah.
But talk about kind of that mindset of getting stuck, right? So for the person that maybe they have their business and they're like, I'm stuck at this current level, but I want to be at this next level. What advice would you give them to help them get unstuck?
The first thing that I would say is to sit down with yourself, either doing some sort of journaling or hire a mentor, or just in a quiet space, and really start to visualize what what your vision looks like. If you really want to double your income in your company, what got you here is not going to get you there. You're not going to be able to be the same person with the same systems and processes and the same client base. You're going to need a bigger client base. You're going to need more employees. You're going to need a bigger feeling about what your capacity is. And in order to grow that capacity, you need to start naturally taking action toward that step. But you don't want to take it willy nilly all the time. I mean, obviously, we gotta throw some things in the air and see if they stick. But we
Right.
certainly want to start believing in that vision. And you don't have to spend a lot of time on that, but you just want to kind of remind yourself maybe once a day, like, hey, I'm a person who can do this. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, what's the thing that's going to get me there? What is going to get me there the fastest? Is it a mentor? Is it learning how to save money on taxes? Is it hiring some more employees? Is it figuring out some marketing channel? And then I would focus on one. Certainly, you can do everything in conjunction with a mentor, but you want to be, they'll actually support you to do that. So that's great. But you want to be able to get one or two ideas that you're going to move forward with, so that you're not just trying to do everything at once. Because oftentimes when we do that at the end of the year, we could just feel like we made some progress but didn't make as much progress. And I say that from experience, because I'm certainly not the pro of the world. We're all on a journey here, and we all have setbacks, and we all make mistakes, and we're all learning. So it's not that one person, even though it looks like some people never make mistakes, but they do. They just don't sit on them, and then they figure it out and move forward.
I think that's so true. And I love that like people like you are willing to come on here and share when things don't work, because I think people have this idea out there that these businesses are just, they're all making millions and they're all doing this, and because people put on a really great front. What you don't know is behind those closed doors. You don't know the frustrations that maybe they're dealing with, or like, I'll never forget when my husband and I were sitting there having serious conversations of how do you make payroll? Like those conversations are what made us today, but people are afraid to talk about them. And I even had this conversation with my husband about it, because he was like, "Oh, we don't talk about it." I'm like, "Why would you not tell people about that? That is part of your journey. That is part of the growth that people need to realize. It's not always going to be perfect and rainbows and unicorns and all the things. There are going to be times when things get tough. But what happens is when things are tough, when you're at the bottom, you look up, right? You can move up, and then you find yourself, you surround yourself, because sometimes you forget to surround yourself with the people that will be able to help you. I am guilty of this so badly. And Tamara, I want you to hold me accountable, because I am really bad at this. I get busy. Everyone gets busy, and you get invited to these things, and we just feel like I got to put that off. I got to put that off because I don't have time. And when those are probably when you need to be at those places, there's probably a reason why you were invited. There's probably a reason why you should go. And we just get busy. Life gets busy. But then all of a sudden, when things get tough, we make room for that, right? Because we look up and we're like, okay, I got to get myself out of that. And so I want to encourage you, one, people, don't be afraid to share the struggles, because that is what makes you you. That's what makes your business what it is. And for all those out there that are doing really well, I think sharing how your journey of how you got there allows other people to feel like you're not doing it alone, right? Do you agree with that?
100%. We're all human, and you're, even if you're listening to this podcast, you're already doing a great service for yourself because you're
Right.
listening, you're learning, you found Deanna, you're doing all the things that you need to be doing. And so it's just a matter of figuring out what that next step is. Because when we're growing, part of the joy of growing a business is that it is exciting. There are challenges. We don't want to wake up every morning and just think, oh, okay, great. That's no fun. Now, granted, it's not to the point where you want to wake up every morning and think, how am I going to make payroll? That's
Right.
not the way we want to
Not
go.
fun.
We need some ups and downs, but certainly we definitely can start to embrace our humanity, especially at the top of 2026. It's, I think, when we give ourselves the most grace and think to ourselves, hey, I made it to 2026. So what's in store for me? What am I going to create this year?
Well, and I think that's exactly it. We've put 2025 behind us, and it's like, are you really creating what's going to be your vision board or your quarterly planning? And I think I was talking to a company this morning and they weren't, and they're very successful business. And did you know they've got 18 employees and they are not doing quarterly planning? And I'm like, that should be 101. Like, that should be something that your employees should be doing right now. Like, this week, like getting that on the books where they're all, and I think what happens is we just get really busy and things work and you continuously do it, but you don't realize that little tiny things like that, like getting your team to build a quarterly plan together, to have visions, goals, whether you're a single business owner, whether you have employees, but whatever it is, having that board or that quarterly planning doc that you look at and you're like, okay, I'm going to hit these goals. It's going to have your key metrics. Maybe it has your initiatives, things that you want to hit and desire that you want to, goals that you want to have your company reach. Like, that's important that you identify that and call it out, because now you're holding yourself accountable. Like, I know when I built mine, I built it like 2 weeks ago. I was ready for 2026. I'm like, I'm going to hold myself accountable. These are the things that I want to hit. And if I don't do that, like, it's just too easy to fall in the trap of the day to day and not ever really stretching yourself. And I think that that's important too, is realizing that sometimes you need to be uncomfortable to get to grow. Growth comes from the uncomfortable side of things, not from the comfortable side of it. Very seldom have I seen people go, "Oh, I'm just super comfortable and I'm just not going to ever grow again." Like, no, it's when you're uncomfortable that you see the growth happening because you're stretching yourself to ways that you never thought you could. And then you're really proud of yourself because you did it, right? So I think that's important too, is identifying now that we're at the top of the year and going, okay, this is what you need to look at. And again, I think tomorrow, with what you're saying, like, I think this is the perfect opportunity for wealth strategies, for tax strategies, like
Mhm.
looking at your business now and saying, what am I going to do? 2025 is behind us. What am I looking at for 2026? And how can I grow and scale and be more wiser with my business, with my personal financing, with my family's, whether it's a trust, whatever it is for you, your
100%.
wealth, right? Like, how do I get better and grow in 2026?
100%. And that's what I say with the women that are part of my mentorship and Women Growing Wealth. I always just honor them so much because they do have really successful businesses and they are making quarterly goals and they are growing. And yet they realize the importance of, if you're not paying attention to your wealth column, your personal column, and learning how that works, then it could just feel like you've made a bunch of money. And then at the end of the day, you just don't know where all of it went. And that's no fun either. And the other thing that I want to add in terms of your quarterly goals, such a great reminder to do those, and such a great way to break it down. I think statistically, we know that quarterly goals get hit a lot easier than annual goals by a substantial amount. And still, I think that it is a dance in terms of setting goals quarterly, and it gives us a marker, just like an enough number. And if you don't hit that number right away, give yourself some grace, and then just figure out how to do it better the next quarter.
Right. I do mine. So I start out really easy. I start out as this is my annual initiative. This is what I want to hit for 2026. And then I break that down and go, okay, out of those things, what do I want to do in the 4 quarters? Q1, 2, 3, and 4. And I break those down. Then from that, I even break it down even further and I go, okay, here's what I'm getting done in January, February, March. And now you're right. You may not always hit every one, and it's easy to move it to the next. It's okay. But for me, it holds my feet and my hands accountable to say, why didn't I hit that? What's the reason? Maybe there's a really good reason. Or maybe I just simply wasn't paying attention. And that could be the case too, right? Like for me, marketing is something that I have to force myself really hard to do because it doesn't come naturally for me. And so, like that, I have to force myself to hit certain marketing goals. And so I do. And so, but if it's there on my board, then I'm holding myself accountable. And then I know that, well, you know what? I need to try harder next month. Or, oh, great, I hit my goal. Great. Now, how can I stretch it a little bit further? Maybe even the further month and even double my goal. But whatever it is, I really do. I start just like anything, even, just start with what do you want to hit for 2026? Break that down into quarterly goals, and then it's digesting it to where it doesn't feel like it's overwhelming. Because you could say, I want to hit X this year, but that can be a little bit daunting if you're like, where do I even start? Okay, I'm just not going to start at all, right? Because you
Right.
don't know how to start. But versus if you're saying, okay, I want to hit X, but if I want to hit X, I need to hit this XYZ this quarter to get towards that I can do. All right, let's figure out what that takes to hit XYZ. Right. And that
Yeah.
is just so much easier for, whether it's you want to hire a new employee, whether it's creating SOPs for the employees that you currently have. Maybe one of mine is simply I'm going to create brand new SOPs for 2026. And that's not a huge thing, and it's not necessarily going to move the needle in my business financially. But you know what it is going to do? It's going to protect my business so that if something were to happen and someone were to leave, it allows my business to not have a shift as big of a shift as and to negatively impact it. So like those are little things that even you can add that are like, I need to have this done. This is something that's in my quarterly goal. And that makes a big difference. And it won't take me that long, but then I'm checking it off my box and I've got that done. So I think I love that you talk about that. But yeah, this is the time, right? This is the time to be doing all of that.
Yeah. And I love that you said maybe I'll hire another employee because I find one of the things with me is I got so inundated with marketing. I finally just said, I need to hire a full time person. So I actually
Mhm.
have a full time person now with marketing to help me because it just gets to a point where you realize, hey, it's too much. It's not, and it shouldn't be on my plate. So you just hire someone. So those are kind of the things that you can look at where you're really bottlenecked. Maybe that's where you need more support, and maybe that is your next hire.
Yeah. So you identify what is your bottleneck and your opportunity, and you say, okay, if this is my bottleneck, this is not really in my zone of genius, then why are you doing it? Let somebody else that can do that, and they'll probably do it a lot better for a fraction of the price of what it costs you. Your time is a value. There is a price dollar amount to your time. And I think we forget that sometimes, right? So like if I'm over here doing social media posts and doing things, is that really the best use of my time? Maybe at the beginning it was, but now it's not. I can have a VA do that or somebody else that's doing that. And my time is better spent doing other things that will move the needle in a bigger way with what I can do. And so I think again, and being honest about the bottleneck, because sometimes the bottleneck is you. Like I admitted last year I was a bottleneck in part of the business, and I had to like look at that and go, wow, I need to step aside and let somebody else do that because I'm becoming a bottleneck. They were coming to me versus going to the people it should have been, and I became that bottleneck. And so identifying those things is okay to do. It's just going to make your business better, right? So
Yeah, love that.
awesome. Tamar, so tell me a little bit about as we're in here, how do people, I know you got multiple businesses, you have a podcast, you do all these. How do people find you? Like tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah, so I have the Women Growing Wealth podcast, and I support women on that podcast to learn how to make, invest, and keep more money. I say the women's way, but men can listen too. There's strategies on there. There's guest speakers. I talk about different ways that I've grown wealth through real estate, through all kinds of tax advantages, through you name it. I cover it, and the guests are on there, and it's really it's really educational. It's a lot of fun, and I'm entertaining, as you can tell.
Yes, you are. You
Yeah.
are indeed.
And then, yeah, and if anyone wants to reach me, one of the gifts that I love to give away is I talked about the enough number, and you can actually get your enough number. You can do it if you're a man or a woman, anybody can do it and get their enough number. And you just go to getyourenoughnumber.com. And that's a great way to kind of get into my email list and learn more about the ideas that I have and books that I read and opportunities that I think about and how to get involved in my circle.
Thank you for sharing that. And Tamara, I just want to say thank you so much. You've been such a joy today. You've just got so much energy, and I love your energy that you bring every
Thank
time I
you.
talk to you. So
Thank
thank you
you.
again. So people, I really suggest you go follow Tamar Hermes, talk about, learn more about her wealth strategies, and thank you for sharing what you did here today, Tamar.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and
Uh,
you can find me on Instagram too. I didn't say that at Tamar Hermes.
Awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
I'm
Well,
everywhere.
everyone, thank you for joining us today. Again, remember, you've got the skills, you've got the drive. Obviously, that's why you're here. So now go turn that into freedom. I want you to take action this week. Remember, it started, you got a brand new week, get started and take action. Make something happen, whether that's doing your quarterly planning, maybe that is creating a new goal for 2026, whatever that is, take action. And guess what? We'll see you on our next episode of the Stay at Home Bookkeeper podcast. Bye, everyone.
Bye.